Imagine you're at a funeral, but instead of black clothes, someone walks in with a bowl of burning weed. The family piles into a tent, hotboxes it, and laughs through their tears. No, not a Lagos hostel after exams, a real funeral ritual, 2,500 years ago. Welcome back to Behind My Mic, where history reminds us that humans have always been a little weird. Today's topic? The long, complicated, slightly smoky history of weed. How did a plant used in ancient medicine, religion, and funerals become one of modern history's most criminalized substances? Grab your headphones. We start around 500 BC. Chapter 1: The Original Hotbox, 500 BC. Your neighborhood dealer didn't invent cannabis. Humans have used it for millennia. The earliest physical evidence, the Jirzhankal Cemetery in western China, around 500 BC, braziers of burnt high THC residue, likely used at funerals to reach the dead. Around 440 BC, the Greek historian Herodotus wrote about the Scythians. After burials, they'd seal a tent, throw hemp on hot stones, and fill it with smoke. He literally wrote that they shouted with joy. Basically, ancient people invented hotboxing before Wi-Fi, and somehow historians call this ritual purification. Sir, they were getting absolutely blasted. Archaeology has since backed him up. Chapter 2. Weed wasn't just for funerals. Humans looked at cannabis and thought, what if this plant could do everything? And for a while, they believed it could. Ancient China. Traditional medicine texts describe cannabis for pain and inflammation. Ancient India. Cannabis became spiritual, consumed as bhang, a milk and spice drink, at festivals, seen by some as a sacred gift from the god Shiva. Imagine explaining to your grandmother that you're not partying, you're being spiritually aligned. The Middle East. Cultures burned it as incense and used it medicinally. Later, Sufi traditions made it mystical. Ancient Egypt, evidence is debated, but traces hint at medicinal and ritual uses. Chapter 3: Hemp-Built Civilization. Here's the part they don't tell you. For most of history, people weren't growing cannabis to smoke, they grew hemp. Hemp is made into rope, sails, paper, clothing, fishing nets, and military equipment. Without hemp, ancient ships couldn't sail. So somewhere out there is a pirate whose entire career depended on weed, not smoking it and just tying things together with it. Chapter 4. So, when did everybody start smoking it? The Scythians probably weren't rolling joints, just sealing a tent and filling it with cannabis smoke. You could call it the world's first group therapy session. Over centuries, cannabis spread along trade routes across Asia, the Middle East, and Africa, then the Americas. And then, politics entered the chat. Chapter 5. The Great Villain Arc. For millennia, cannabis was mostly a useful crop or medicine. Then the early 1900s happened. Migration from Mexico into the US popularized the term marijuana, which gradually replaced cannabis. Meanwhile, sensational newspapers began linking the drug to violence and crime. A major figure was Harry Anslinger, whose campaign cast cannabis as something that turned ordinary people into criminals. Movies like Reefer Madness basically said, smoke one joint. And next thing you know, you're robbing banks, playing jazz, and questioning authority. To be fair, questioning authority was probably the real problem. Chapter 6. 1937. The Banhammer. In 1937, the U.S. passed the Marijuana Tax Act, which imposed strict controls and taxes on cannabis, the first big federal restriction. Other countries followed. Then, globally, the 1961 Single Convention on Narcotic Drugs limited cannabis to mainly medical and scientific use. And just like that, a plant that survived empires, wars, and migrations became one of the world's most prohibited. Chapter 7. The plot twist today. Countries and states are slowly changing course. Medical programs are widespread. Some places allow recreational use, and scientists are researching cannabinoids for therapy. It's almost like society looked at 5,000 years of history and said maybe our ancestors weren't making this up. Here's the strangest part. The same plant has been a funeral ritual, a medicine, a religious sacrament, a shipbuilding material, a political symbol, a criminal offense, and now a $1 billion industry. That's one impressive resume for a plant. Imagine being cannabis. You spend 2,500 years helping people mourn, and one government meeting later, you're public enemy number one. History really is funny like that. And that's the story of how humanity went from hotboxing funeral tents in 500 BC to debating legalization in Parliament. If you enjoyed this episode of Behind My Mic, remember, history isn't boring. It's just gossip that survived long enough to become a textbook. I'm your host, and until next time, keep questioning the stories you've been told.